So the 1.9 trillion, it's hard to even say that word because it doesn't seem real. The stimulus package passed. You probably heard that last night. It's going to be signed by the president presumably tomorrow, and then the money will be released. And what's in that package? So that's what opened up the conversation we're about to have with the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, based on a story they have published in Forbes. Adam Andrzejewski. Andrzejewski is on our Disk Institute of Pittsburgh newsline right outside of Chicago. Adam, good morning.
Great to be on the program, Larry. Kevin, thank you very much for your interest in our work.
Well, we appreciate the finer details of what you do. And Kevin, you saw this story and you said, you're not going to believe this.
I couldn't believe my eyes. We're talking about the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, that $1 trillion emergency aid package. But the emergency aid, some say, well, there's only so much emergency aid in it, like maybe 800 million. The rest is sort of pork. So this thing for federal workers, can you explain what federal workers will get once President Biden signs this?
So our auditors at OpenTheBooks.com, we actually read the bill, and stuffed in there on page 305, we found a new federal worker perk, paid to stay home. If your child's school doesn't offer full-time classroom instruction, federal employees out of this bill, they get a new perk, and it's up to $21,000. So while you and I get an individual payment out of this bill for $1,400 once, federal workers can get $1,400 per week for 15 weeks, up to $21,000 in paid time off.
That's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Think about this. We already know, we did an oversight report on the federal bureaucracy, and the 78 largest agencies, the average cash compensation exceeds $100,000 a year. If you hit your year 3 anniversary as a federal employee, you get 43 days of paid time off. So not every week, but nearly every week of the year is a 4-day work week for a federal worker. So layered on top of all of that, now you have this new perk that if your child's school isn't open, and there's no age, child is not defined in the bill, there's no age. We believe this also applies to college-age kids whose college isn't fully open. Your school could even be hybrid. The federal employee can still claim $21,000 and be paid to stay home.
So the average employee, federal worker, the average federal worker is paid, makes around $100,000 from these agencies. And they can collect $1,400 per week. And the president said he would like to at least open schools 1 day a week. So as long as schools are open less than 5 days a week, they're going to be able to collect this $1,400. Absolutely.
And it's not a cheap benefit. There's a new fund established over at the Treasury Department with $570 million in it. This is a $500 million benefit.
What's amazing to me is if Kevin's math is correct that the average is $100,000 for a federal employee, $75,000 is the limit to get the original $1,400 stimulus.
Yeah, so the average taxpayer who makes more than $75,000 isn't even allowed to get the $1,400.
That's right. Well, this is $1,400 a week for 15 weeks, $21,000 total. Look, there's a lot of other waste in this bill. There's a bailout of states and localities to the tune of $362 billion. We took a look at the 50 richest places across the United States. These are towns like Scarsdale, New York, the richest place on the East Coast. It's places like the 50 richest places are going to get $100 million out of this bill. And they include like $1.5 million for Atherton, California. The Hamptons are going to get bailed out for $8 million. Greenwich, Connecticut, $21 million. Key West in Florida, $10 million. The county that encompasses Silicon Valley, the richest place in the country, right? They're going to get $385 million out of this local bailout bill.
We're with Adam Andrzejewski, CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. So what else is in there that's going to aggravate people, Adam?
One of the biggest frauds in the history of our country. The unemployment benefits are being stolen by con artists, fraudsters, and crime syndicates. So, there was 40 million people that had real needs, real pain at the height of the pandemic. 40 million people were tossed out of a job. So Congress has now thrown $860 billion, nearly $1 trillion, at the unemployment system. The states were woefully unprepared for this, but the con artists and the criminals, they were very prepared for it. The latest estimates from our auditors, the fraud is going to exceed $100 billion. It is the largest public fraud in the history of the country.
Okay. All right. So we knocked off a few of them. What about, I think I saw $50 million for Planned Parenthood and public entities, including services for nonprofits that serve adolescents. What about the big question of...
Well, let's cover that, because they get rid of the Hyde Amendment and other amendments. So your tax dollars are going to fund overseas abortions directly and domestic abortions. So regardless of your position on the issue, most people don't want their tax dollars actually funding it directly, and Democrats are now going to deliver that.
Okay, and what about the $1,400? I've heard rumors that the incarcerated and those here illegally will get that as well.
That's true. Now, let's take a look at K through 12 school funding. During 2020, Congress threw $67 billion at our schools to get them open. Okay, for instance, in Chicago, $100 million went to infrastructure improvements to virus-proof the schools. They're still not open. So there's still $10 billion out of that $67 billion that's not even been spent. But in this bill, in one fell swoop, $128 billion gets shoveled off to K through 12 schools. 95% of it won't be spent till 2022 through 2028. We found $1 out of every $3 won't even be spent till after the next presidential election.
And you are quick to point out the bipartisan spending over the years, with Republicans and Democrats adding up to drain the U.S. Treasury.
That's right. We have, when President Trump won election, Republicans controlled both houses of Congress. Paul Ryan was the Speaker of the House, and the Republicans joined with Democrats to drain the U.S. Treasury from the right. They racked up trillion-dollar deficits during boom times.
So we went from, Adam, according to your team's calculations, our national debt increased from $10 trillion in 2008 to $28 trillion today.
That's right. 12, 13 short years, we've tripled. Now, with the passage of this bill, we're going north of $30 trillion. So it's a triple on the national debt in roughly 13 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And
we got to have
like
you back.
$245,000 that's owed by every single taxpayer.
Right. Yeah. So who's got the plan to pay this back? Who? So the Democrats are operating under a new theory called MMT, modern monetary theory, that you don't have to have a funding source for your spending. And true enough, this $1.9 trillion bill, most of it, about half of it is waste, if you're generous, half's to the pandemic, half of it's waste. It's not related to COVID. So that's $1 trillion. All of it is borrowed. And now our debt is over $30 trillion, a 3-time increase over the last 13 years.
CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. Check it out. Read all about it. Adam Andrzejewski on our Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. We're going to call you again, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank
you for your interest in our work.